Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled. I'm your host, and today is one of those days where I honestly feel a little vibration in the air. You know that feeling when you read something or a series of things, and you just realize the ground has shifted under your feet?
It's the feeling of a paradigm shift.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really is. I've been sitting here with this whole stack of research that our team dropped on my desk this morning, and I keep looking at the date, Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. And I'm planting a flag right here. I'm calling it, this week is the inflection point.
That is a bold claim.
Yeah.
I mean, considering how much hype we usually see in this industry, that's saying something.
I know.
But looking at what the research team has compiled, I'm inclined to agree with you. It's not just one thing, it's the convergence.
Right. Because for the last decade, whenever we talk about longevity or aging on Tomorrow Unveiled, we're usually talking about, well, let's be honest, we're talking about optimization.
Right. Biohacking.
Yeah, eating more fiber, getting into cold plunges, maybe taking some supplements to, slow down the rust. It's all maintenance. It's trying to keep the classic car running for a few more miles.
It's a defensive strategy. You're just trying to delay the inevitable entropy. You're patching holes in the boat.
But this week, this isn't defense. This is engineering.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't talking about slowing down the slide anymore. We are talking about functional restoration. We are talking about, and this is the term we're using for this, the immortality update.
And we should probably clarify right up front, before listeners get the wrong idea, what we mean by immortality here.
Good point.
We are not talking about uploading your consciousness to a server or, freezing your head.
No sci-fi today. Not that kind anyway.
We are talking about the functional extension of high-quality life. Healthspan, not just lifespan.
Yeah.
And the data our research team has pulled together. It shows a convergence of three really distinct pillars that all suggest we are moving from treating aging to, and this is the key phrase, reversing damage.
It's making 90 feel like 50. That's the real goal, isn't it?
That's the goal, precisely. And the three pillars are fascinating because they cover the entire spectrum of biology, from the code to the clinic.
Okay, lay them out for us.
So first, we have what is really a regulatory earthquake. The first ever human clearance for epigenetic reprogramming. This is the Control-Z for the cell, the undo button.
I cannot wait to get into the mechanics of that one. That's the headline for me.
It is. Then second, we have a complete rewrite of the timeline of aging itself. We used to think it was this slow, gradual slide downhill.
Like a ramp.
Exactly. Turns out it's not. It's a series of cliffs. And the data points to two specific ages, 44 and 60.
Which I have to say felt a little personal when I read it this morning. A little too real.
It feels personal for a lot of people. And third, we have a controversial new consensus on genetics that completely upends that old 80-20 rule we've all been taught about lifestyle versus your DNA.
So effectively, everything I thought I knew about getting old is wrong.
In the best possible way, yes.
Okay, let's set the stage then. I woke up this morning, my knee was doing that, that clicking thing it does, and I just felt heavy. And I had that thought, is this it? Is this just the slow fade? And then I read this report about the gear shifts at 44 and 60. So let's start with the big question. Is my feeling of suddenly getting old just in my head?
Statistically, no, not at all. If you are hovering anywhere near those two, ages 44 or 60, what you are feeling is a measurable biological reality.
Wow.
The research team analyzed a massive data set. I mean, truly massive. They tracked over 135,000 biological molecules in people over years. And the conclusion is stark. You don't age linearly. You crash in waves.
That is terrifying, but also incredibly validating.
Right. It's not your imagination.
We're definitely going to unpack exactly what is breaking down to those crashes later on in Tomorrow Unveiled, and more importantly, how to armor plate your body against them. But first, we have to talk about the biggest headline. The one that feels like it's straight out of science fiction. The Control-Z.
The epigenetic reprogramming trial. Yes.
This is the story that made me just stop and stare at the wall for a good 5 minutes. The FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, has officially cleared a clinical trial for a therapy coded as ER100. And the claim here, the explicit claim, is that it can turn back time inside a human cell.
It's a historic moment. I don't think that's an exaggeration. This is the transition from the lab bench, from experiments in mice, to the clinic, to people.
Okay, but let's strip away the marketing speak for a second. Epigenetic reprogramming. We hear these buzzwords a lot. What is actually happening biologically here? Because I have this mental image of Benjamin Button, but I assume that's not quite it.
Not quite. It's actually more elegant than that. So to understand this, we have to look at the difference between your genetics and your epigenetics.
Okay.
Think of your DNA, your genome, as the hardware of a computer. It's the hard drive. It contains all the information, all the blueprints to build you. That hardware doesn't really change much from the day you're born to the day you die, aside from some, random mutations here and there.
Right. My DNA is the same now as it was when I was 5.
Exactly. But sitting on top of that DNA, controlling it, is the software, the operating system. That is the epigenome. And it's this vast, complex system of chemical marks, mostly things called methylation tags, that attach to the DNA.
Little sticky notes.
Precisely. They're like little sticky notes that tell the cell which genes to read and which ones to ignore. They tell a cell, okay, you are a skin cell, so you need to produce keratin, or you are a neuron, so you need to fire an electrical signal. It's what gives a cell its identity.
So the hardware is the library of every possible book, and the epigenome is the librarian deciding which books to pull off the shelf at any given time.
That's a great analogy, a perfect one, actually. Now, here's the problem with aging. As we get older, the librarian gets confused, the software gets corrupted. We accumulate what scientists call epigenetic noise. The methylation patterns get messy, the sticky notes get smudged, they fall off, they get put on the wrong pages. A skin cell starts to forget it's a skin cell. It loses its identity. It starts turning on genes it shouldn't and turning off genes it desperately needs. This noise is what we experience as aging.
So wrinkles, organ failure, gray hair, that's all just the software glitching out.
Fundamentally, yes.
Yeah.
At its core, it's a loss of information. Now, for years, for decades, really, the big question was, is that information lost forever? Did someone burn the books in the library? Or is it just that the librarian can't find them anymore?
And the answer is?
The answer, driven by the Nobel Prize-winning work of Shinya Yamanaka back in 2006, is that the information is still there. The pristine backup copy exists. We just need to reboot the system.
This is the factory reset analogy I've heard about.
It is. Yamanaka identified 4 specific proteins, they're called transcription factors, that are super active in embryos when you're first being formed. And if you expose an old, battered cell to these 4 factors, you can wipe the epigenetic marks completely clean. You can literally turn a 90-year-old skin cell back into an embryonic stem cell.
Okay, but hang on. This is where my skepticism always kicks in. An embryo is great if you're, making a baby, but I am a fully formed adult. If I turn my eye cells or my liver cells back into an embryo, don't I just become a pile of goo? Or worse, a tumor?
That is the precise danger, and it's the reason this technology has stayed in the lab for so long. The risk is what we call teratomas. These are literally monster tumors made of mixed-up tissue types like teeth and hair, growing where they shouldn't.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
Very bad. If you run the full Yamanaka program with all 4 factors for too long, you wipe the cell's identity completely. The cell forgets it's an eye, it thinks it's a stem cell, so it just starts dividing uncontrollably. That is not what we want.
So how does ER100 solve this? How do you reset the age without wiping the identity? How do you get the benefit without the monster tumor?
This is the breakthrough. It's called partial reprogramming. And there are 2 key innovations here. First, the research team notes that this specific therapy uses a modified cocktail. They use 3 of the factors, OCT4, SOX2, and KLF4, but they leave out the 4th one.
Which one is that?
It's called c-Myc. And it's a potent oncogene, which means it's the one most strongly linked to causing cancer.
So they took out the most dangerous ingredient.
They took out the gas pedal. But the even more important innovation really is about timing. They don't let the program run continuously. They pulse it. They turn it on just long enough to polish the scratches off the CD to remove that aging noise, but they stop before it wipes the data.
So it's not a full format of the hard drive.
No. They restore the youthful methylation pattern, but the cell still remembers it's an eye cell.
It's a system restored to a previous save point, not a full wipe to factory settings.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it.
Now, you mentioned turning it on and off. This is the part of the report that really it blew my mind.
Yeah.
This isn't just a pill you take and hope for the best. There is a literal safety switch engineered into this therapy.
This is, in my opinion, the most elegant part of the entire design. Because biology is messy, right? You don't want to just inject a virus that's going to permanently rewrite your DNA and just, cross your fingers and hope it stops at the right time.
Right, because once it's in, it's in. There's no going back.
Usually, yes. But ER100 utilizes something called a doxycycline inducible switch. It's basically a genetic lock. The therapy is delivered into your cells using a harmless viral vector, but the genes for rejuvenation are silent. They're asleep.
Okay.
They cannot turn on unless the patient is actively taking a specific, very common antibiotic.
Doxycycline. Wait, doxycycline, the stuff I took for a sinus infection last year. That stuff.
The very same. The drug itself acts as the key. When you swallow the pill, the drug circulates in your blood, it enters the cell, it binds to this genetic switch, and it turns the rejuvenation genes on.
And if I stop taking the pill?
The drug leaves your system in about 24 hours, and the therapy turns off immediately.
That is an incredible level of control. It puts the doctor and the patient in the driver's seat. So if you feel weird, if blood markers look off, you just stop the pill and the gene therapy stops.
It converts what could be a biological runaway train into a dimmer switch. You can dial it up, you can dial it down. That safety profile is almost certainly the main reason the FDA felt comfortable clearing this for human trials.
So humans, real people. Let's talk about that. What are they actually testing this on? They aren't trying to make someone's whole body younger right out of the gate.
No, that's far too complex and risky for a first trial. They are being very smart and targeted. They're going after the eye.
The eye.
Specifically, a condition called non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, or NAION. It's basically a stroke in the optic nerve that causes sudden blindness. And they might also target glaucoma.
Why the eye? Is it just because it's easy to examine?
Well, that's part of it. But there are a few really clever reasons. First, the eye is what we call immune privileged.
What does that mean?
It means the immune system doesn't attack foreign things there as aggressively as it would in, say, your arm. This reduces the risk of rejection. Second, the optic nerve is effectively part of the brain. It's central nervous system tissue. So if you can fix it, you're fixing neurons.
Wow.
And third, and maybe most importantly, the readout is binary.
You can see or you can't.
Exactly. In standard longevity trials, you might have to wait 20 years to see if someone lives longer. It's a nightmare to measure. In this trial, you can measure visual acuity in a matter of months. If a patient with a damaged old optic nerve suddenly regains vision,
Then you've proven that you can reverse aging in neurons, in human neurons.
you've proven you can take a cell that was functionally dead due to age and damage, and you can reboot it. And if you can do that in the eye, the implication is that you can eventually do it in the kidney, the liver, maybe even the brain itself.
It's the Kitty Hawk moment. The flight might only last a few seconds, but it proves the machine can fly.
Correct. We are witnessing the transition from, is this even possible, to how do we deploy it safely?
Incredible. Just incredible. So that's the software update. But we need to talk about the hardware instructions, the code itself, because we have to talk about the nature versus nurture debate, because the research team included a study in this stack that, well, it kind of hurt my feelings.
You mean the study on the heritability of lifespan?
Yes. For the last 20 years, I feel like the wellness industry has been screaming one statistic at me over and over. Genes are only 20% of the equation. 80% is lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it was this very empowering idea, you know. It meant that if I exercised and ate my kale, I was in control.
It was a very American idea, wasn't it? The pull yourself up by your bootstraps of biology.
It really was. And now?
Now, we have to look at the new analysis. The research team compiled this from massive data sets, including data sourced from the Weizmann Institute, and the split. It isn't 80-20, it's closer to 50-50.
50%.
Yes.
50% of my lifespan is determined by my genetics.
Approximately, yes. The variation in lifespan, about half of it seems to be heritable.
Why tap the massive change? I mean, it's a huge jump. Did we just not have enough data before? Or were we reading it wrong?
We had data, but we were looking at it through a dirty lens. The previous studies, most of them were twin studies from decades ago, they failed to properly distinguish between intrinsic mortality and extrinsic mortality.
Okay, let's break that down. Intrinsic versus extrinsic.
Sure. Extrinsic mortality is death by environment, it's infectious disease, it's war, it's a car accident, it's the classic getting eaten by a tiger.
Right, the tiger factor.
Exactly. Now imagine you have perfect genetics. You have the DNA to live to be 120, but at age 25 you get cholera, or you get drafted into a war, or you just step in front of a bus. In the old data, you go down as having a short lifespan, period.
So the environment completely masks your genetic potential.
Correct. The noise of the world drowned out the signal of the DNA. But this new analysis used a brilliant filtering method. They looked at millions of family trees, but they filtered for longevity. They computationally removed the noise of early accidental extrinsic deaths. And when you strip away the tigers and the buses and the plagues and you just look at biological aging,
Does the gene pop out?
the genetic correlation between parents and children becomes much, much stronger. It turns out once we solve the easy problems, clean water, antibiotics, seatbelts, we are left with the hard problem, the code itself.
There was one specific stat in there regarding dementia that really shook me.
The 70% figure.
Yes, that the heritability of dementia risk up to age 80 is approximately 70%.
Nah.
That makes me feel, honestly, it makes me feel helpless. If my grandmother had it, does that mean I'm just waiting for the clock to run out on me?
I completely understand that reaction. It feels fatalistic, but I would argue, and this is important, that this is actually the most empowering data we've ever had.
How is your 70% doomed empowering?
Because it's not saying you're doomed. It's saying the generic advice doesn't work for you. If you know that genetics is 50% of the game, you stop playing the generic 80% lifestyle game. You start playing your game.
Personalized defense.
Exactly. If you know you have a high genetic risk for dementia, you don't just eat well. You aggressively manage your vascular health in your 30s. You track your homocysteine levels. You prioritize deep sleep with military discipline. You actively build cognitive reserve by learning new skills. You treat your brain like it's under siege before the enemy even arrives at the gates.
So the 50% genetic rule tells us where to fight the battle.
It tells us that we can't out-lifestyle a bad gene with just generic wellness advice. We have to be sniper precise. And this connects directly to the Centenarian Secret the research team highlighted.
Ah, the superagers.
Right. We used to think people who lived to be 100 just had good habits, but the data shows so many of them smoked or ate bacon every day.
That always annoyed me. You know the story about the guy who drinks a whiskey and smokes a cigar every day and lives to be 105?
It's not fair, is it? But the new data confirms why. They don't just have average genes and great luck. They have specific protective gene variants. They have built-in shields that repair DNA more efficiently, or manage cholesterol better, or suppress inflammation more effectively.
So they are mutants. In a good way.
Effectively, yes. They won the genetic lottery, and the goal of modern longevity science, and this goes right back to that ER100 therapy, is to figure out what those shields are and then give them to the rest of us.
Democratizing the mutant genes. I like the sound of that.
It's the ultimate goal from a therapeutic standpoint.
Okay, so we've got the software reset, we've got the genetic reality check. Now let's talk about the timeline. Because earlier you mentioned that aging isn't a straight line, it's a series of cliffs.
The gear shifts. Yes, this is based on that massive study, I believe, sourced from Stanford that I mentioned earlier. They took blood samples from people aged 25 to 75 every few months for years, and they measured everything. I mean, thousands of proteins, RNA, lipids, microbiome markers, everything.
And they found that we stay relatively stable for long periods, and then we just crash.
81% of the molecules they tracked didn't change gradually. They shifted, sometimes violently, at two specific ages, age 44 and age 60.
Okay, I am staring down the barrel of one of those numbers, so let's talk about 44. What exactly is breaking at age 44? What is this cliff made of?
At 44, the primary collapse is in lipid metabolism and alcohol metabolism.
Okay, see, this is why I love science. Because it validates my misery.
The misery of the two-day hangover.
Yes, absolutely. In my 20s, I could go out, have a few drinks, eat a pizza at 2 a.m., and wake up ready to run a 5K. Now, I look at a glass of Merlot and I feel like I gained 3 pounds. And if I actually drink it, I'm out of commission for 2 full days. I thought I was just getting lazy or losing willpower.
You aren't lazy. Your enzymatic machinery is literally downshifting. The study showed that the specific enzymes in the liver responsible for breaking down alcohol and processing dietary fats they drop off a cliff in the mid-40s.
But why? Is it programmed? Is there some biological clock that says, okay, party's over?
That's the billion-dollar question. It might be related to hormonal changes triggering shifts in liver function. It might be the cumulative effect of the microbiome changing over decades. We don't know the ultimate why yet, but the result is that your body suddenly stops accepting the fuel you've been giving it for 20 years.
It's like a sudden inflation spike. The metabolic cost of a burger and a beer just doubled overnight.
Exactly. And this is why we see such a dramatic spike in diagnoses of cardiovascular disease and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease starting in the late 40s and early 50s. It's not just behavior, it's the biology failing to cope with the behavior that used to be fine.
So if you're approaching 44, the advice isn't just be healthy, it's change your fuel mix immediately.
You have to adapt to the new engine. You cannot eat like a teenager when your liver is starting to act like a retiree.
Okay, that's 44. It's bleak, but it's actionable. What about 60? What is the cliff there?
60 is arguably more dangerous because it's less about metabolism and more about resilience. At 60, we see the major shift in carbohydrate metabolism, kidney function markers, and most critically, the immune system.
The immune system crashes.
We call it immunosenescence. The production of fresh, naive immune cells from your bone marrow drops significantly, and background inflammation markers, what we call inflammaging, they spike.
And this is why a simple flu that would just annoy a 40-year-old can hospitalize, or worse, a 65-year-old.
Precisely. The body loses its ability to distinguish between self and invader, and it loses the energetic capacity to mount a strong defense.
It connects right back to that intrinsic aging idea we were talking about with genetics. The internal repair crew just goes on strike.
They do, and knowing this roadmap is everything. If you know a hurricane is scheduled to hit at age 60, you don't wait until you're 59 to buy some plywood. You spend your 50s building a storm shelter.
You board up the windows before the hurricane hits.
That is the essence of functional longevity, anticipation. You use the data to prepare for the inevitable biological shifts.
I love that. We're going to take a very brief pause to let everyone digest the fact that their alcohol tolerance is scientifically doomed. But when we come back, we're going to space.
To space.
Yes. Because apparently astronauts are aging faster than any of us, and they hold the key to fixing that immune crash at age 60. Plus, we're going to talk about taking out the cellular trash and an incredible way to spot Parkinson's 20 years early. You do not want to miss this part of Tomorrow Unveiled. Hey everyone, quick pause from our exploration of the future. If you're listening to this and thinking, okay, this explains why my knees hurt, or I really need to look into this lipid metabolism thing, do us a huge favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled, and maybe even hit that new hype button. It truly helps the algorithm find other people who are curious about the future of their own biology. And make sure those notifications are on so you don't miss the next update.
And for our audio listeners on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and a review for Tomorrow Unveiled. It helps us justify the massive amount of coffee our research team consumes to bring you these insights every week.
We really do want to hear from you. Leave a comment. Did you feel that wall at 44 or 60? Or do you think it's all in our heads? Let us know what you think about these biological gear shifts. We read everything. Okay, let's get back to the research. So we were just talking about the immune crash at 60, but the research team flagged a really interesting, almost unexpected source of data on this. Astronauts.
Yes. Spaceflight is turning out to be one of our best models for accelerated aging. It's a natural laboratory for what goes wrong.
Which makes sense when you think about it. It's high radiation, high stress, microgravity. It's a hostile environment.
Exactly. When you put a human in space, even for just a few months, they experience bone density loss, muscle atrophy, and immune dysfunction that looks remarkably like what happens to a senior citizen here on Earth over a decade or more.
It's a time machine. You go up, you get old fast.
And the new research this week was focused on the immune system, specifically the batteries of the immune cells, their mitochondria.
The powerhouse of the cell. I knew that would come up.
Everyone remembers that from high school biology. But here is the critical nuance. Mitochondria are fragile. They work incredibly hard. They're constantly producing energy. And in the process, they get damaged by free radicals. A damaged mitochondrion is like a leaking battery. It starts spilling toxic chemicals into the rest of the cell.
And that causes inflammation.
It triggers a massive inflammatory response. Now, a young, healthy cell has a janitor. It has a process called mitophagy. It's a quality control system that identifies the broken, leaking battery, wraps it up in a little bubble, and recycles it.
Taking out the cellular trash.
Exactly. But, and here's the direct connection, at that age 60 cliff we talked about, and also in astronauts in space, that janitor stops showing up for work. The mitophagy process fails.
So the trash just piles up.
The trash piles up. The immune cells get clogged with their own dysfunctional, toxic waste, and they stop working properly. They become senescent.
So the immune system fails because it's basically living in a hoarder's house.
That is a visceral but scientifically accurate image. So the question then becomes, can we bring the janitor back? Can we restart the trash collection service?
And the research team points to a specific molecule here called urolithin A.
Yes, urolithin A. It's a fascinating compound. It's a postbiotic, which means it isn't in the food itself. It's generated when your gut bacteria digest specific compounds called elagitanins, which are found in pomegranates, walnuts, and some berries.
So I should just drink more pomegranate juice. Problem solved.
Well, here's the frustrating catch. The research shows that only about 30 to 40% of people have the specific gut bacteria required to actually make that conversion.
Oh.
You can drink all the pomegranate juice you want, but if you don't have the right microbial factory in your gut, you get zero urolithin A.
So for most of us, it's a supplement game. We have to bypass the gut bacteria.
Correct. And the new study flagged by the team is pivotal because for the first time, it showed that direct supplementation of urolithin A, they used a specific formulation called MitoPure, didn't just help muscles, which we already knew, it specifically revitalized the immune system.
It woke up the janitor.
It literally restored mitophagy in T cells, which are the soldiers of your immune system. It cleared out the trash, and suddenly, these old, tired immune cells started functioning like young cells again. They could fight tumors and infections with a renewed vigor.
That connects the dots so perfectly. If the crash at 60 is driven by immune failure, and that immune failure is driven by this pileup of mitochondrial trash, then clearing the trash might flatten that curve.
Exactly. We're moving from this vague idea of boosting immunity, which usually just means taking vitamin C and hoping for the best, to rejuvenating immunity at a fundamental mechanistic level.
There was another molecule in the research stack that plays into this, rapamycin. This is sort of the heavyweight champion of longevity drugs, right? It's been around forever.
It is the most robust and consistently proven longevity drug we have in animal models. It extends life in yeast, worms, flies, and mice. It's the gold standard.
But wait, isn't it an immunosuppressant? I thought it's used for transplant patients so they don't reject organs. Doesn't that directly contradict what we just said? We want to boost immunity, not suppress it.
This is the great rapamycin paradox. And you're right. At high doses, taken daily, it absolutely suppresses the immune system. But the new research, and this is what's so exciting, shows that at low intermittent doses, like once a week, it actually protects and rejuvenates the immune system in older adults.
How does it do that?
Well, we used to think it was just about triggering autophagy, that cellular cleaning process. But the new mechanism they found is that it protects the immune cells from DNA damage. It seems to tell the cells to hunker down, repair themselves, and focus on quality control rather than just growing and dividing blindly.
So urolithin A fixes the batteries, the mitochondria, and rapamycin protects the blueprints, the DNA.
That's a great way to synthesize it, yes. We are building a toolkit of different levers we can pull to intervene at that critical age 60 cliff.
Okay, let's move from the immune system up to the brain. Because there is a very disturbing but also incredibly hopeful update in the research regarding Parkinson's disease.
The gut-brain axis. This is one of the hottest areas in all of neuroscience right now.
My grandfather had Parkinson's. It's just, it's a cruel disease. You lose yourself by degrees.
Yeah.
And we've always thought of it as a brain disease, something that just starts in the head.
We did. But a massive breakthrough discussed this week confirms a theory that's been building for years. For a large subset of patients, Parkinson's does not start in the brain. It starts in the gut.
In the stomach.
In the enteric nervous system, to be precise. The complex web of nerves that lines your entire gut. The theory, which is now heavily supported by data, is that the misfolded proteins, these things called alpha-synuclein, start clumping together in the gut first. Then they hijack the body's own transport systems to get to the brain.
They hitch a ride.
Essentially, yes. They get picked up by wandering immune cells, macrophages, and are then transported up the vagus nerve, which is like a superhighway connecting the gut directly to the brainstem. It's an invasion force moving up the highway.
That is a terrifying thought. An invasion from my own stomach. But you said this is good news. Why?
Because of the timeline. This migration, this invasion, takes years, in some cases decades. And the research team highlighted a new study showing we can now detect the specific markers of this disease process in the blood 20 years before the hand starts to shake.
20 years. So you could be 45, take a simple blood test, and see the invasion coming.
Yes. And that is a complete game changer. Because if it's still in the gut, or just starting its journey in the blood, you could theoretically treat it there. You could use therapies that don't need to cross the difficult blood-brain barrier. You could stop the invasion at the border long before it ever reaches the capital.
That changes Parkinson's from a tragedy you watch happen to a condition you can manage and prevent.
It's the very definition of the immortality update concept. Not living forever, but actively stopping the things that take life and quality of life away from us.
Now, speaking of the brain, not all of this requires high-tech drugs or futuristic blood tests. The research stack had some surprisingly low-tech hacks, things people can do right now.
I loved this section. Sometimes the best technology is the stuff we've had for decades and just didn't appreciate properly. Two things stood out: hearing aids and languages.
Hearing aids, really?
The data is overwhelming and, frankly, shocking. A major study showed that regular use of hearing aids in older adults who have hearing loss reduced their all-cause mortality risk by 24%.
24%. That's better than almost any drug on the market.
It is profound, and the mechanism is something called cognitive load.
Explain that concept.
When you can't hear well, your brain has to dedicate a huge amount of its processing power just to decode the noise. Did you say cat or hat? Was that a siren or the television? Your brain is constantly straining, filling in the gaps. That drains the energy it needs for memory, for executive function, for maintaining balance.
So your brain is exhausted just trying to hear, so it has nothing left for actually thinking.
Exactly. And that's not even mentioning the social aspect. Hearing loss leads to social isolation. You stop going to dinner parties because it's too loud. You stop talking to people. And we know that loneliness is a massive killer. Hearing aids fix the input problem, which frees up the brain to stay sharp and engaged with the world.
So if you need them, get them. It's not about vanity, it's about brain preservation.
Absolutely. And the second one, multilingualism.
Learning a second language.
Speaking two or more languages creates what we call cognitive reserve. The constant micro-switching your brain has to do, inhibiting one language to speak the other, is like a heavy bench press for the prefrontal cortex. It builds resilience.
Does it actually prevent Alzheimer's?
This is the fascinating part. It doesn't necessarily prevent the underlying pathology. You might still get the plaques and tangles in your brain, but, and this is the key, people who are bilingual can function normally despite the damage for much longer. Their brains have built alternate routes, like a city with a great public transit system. If there's a traffic jam on one street, there are other ways to get to the destination.
So you could delay the onset of symptoms.
By 4 or 5 years, on average. And that is 4 or 5 more years of knowing your grandkids' names. That's huge.
It's functional longevity in a nutshell.
It really is.
Okay, one last piece of tech in this segment. The urine clock. I have to ask. We have blood clocks. We have DNA methylation clocks.
Yeah.
Why do we need to pee in a cup to know how old we are?
Because of compliance. Look, if we want people to track their biological age every month to see if their diet or their ER100 therapy is working, we can't ask them to go get a venous blood draw every single month. It's painful, it's expensive, it's inconvenient.
True. I hate needles.
Most people do. This new Japanese study utilized an AI model to analyze microRNAs in urine. These are tiny molecules that reflect what's happening in all the cells in your body, and they found it correlates with biological age with incredible accuracy.
So the future is a smart toilet.
The future is absolutely a smart toilet. You go to the bathroom in the morning and your phone pings you. Your biological age went up 3 weeks today. Maybe skip the donuts and go for a walk.
The quantified self meets the porcelain throne. I love it.
It sounds funny, but continuous non-invasive monitoring is how we catch those cliffs at 44 and 60 before we fall off them.
We have one final pillar to cover in this week's update, and it's the one that hits the wallet and the waistline for so many people, the metabolic revolution. We've all heard of Ozempic and the GLP-1 drugs, but there's a new player in town.
Maritide, a new drug from Amgen.
Maritide. It sounds like a laundry detergent, but the data is very serious. How is this different from the weekly shots people are taking now?
The current drugs, Wegovy, Zepbound, Ozempic, they are weekly injections. They mimic gut hormones like GLP-1. They work great, but they're short-acting. Maritide is different. It's an antibody-drug conjugate. It's a big, sticky molecule that's designed to stay in the system much, much longer.
And the headline here is the dosing schedule.
Quarterly. A single shot, once every 3 months.
That is a massive shift psychologically.
It changes the psychology entirely. A weekly shot is a treatment. It reminds you every Tuesday that you are sick or overweight or have a condition. It's a tether. A shot once every 3 months. That's maintenance. That's like getting an oil change for your car.
Set it and forget it for your metabolism.
And the data suggests it might be particularly good for maintaining weight loss. The big fear with the current drugs is the rebound. You stop taking it, the hunger roars back, and the weight comes back on. If you can transition from a weekly dose to a quarterly maintenance dose, you can stabilize the system for the long term.
It helps bridge that age 44 metabolic cliff we talked about earlier. You use the technology to smooth out the ride.
Exactly. It's a tool for metabolic homeostasis, for balance.
Okay, we have covered a staggering amount of ground. I feel like my brain has aged a few years just trying to process it all. From resetting eye cells to fighting gut invasions to smart toilets. If I'm a listener and I want to put this all into practice, what is the longevity stack for 2026 based on everything we've learned today?
If we synthesize all the findings from the research team, the stack has 4 distinct layers. I think it's a useful framework. Number 1 is monitor. You cannot manage what you do not measure. You need to know your genetic risk. That 50% factor is real. You need to know your biological age, whether that's from blood tests now or in the future, urine clot.
Check.
Number 2 is anticipate. You have to know the cliffs are coming. 44 and 60. Don't wait for the symptoms to show up. If you are 40, you should be obsessing over your lipid profile and liver enzymes. If you are 55, you should be training your immune system like an athlete.
Anticipate, got it.
Number 3 is maintain. Use the tools that exist now. Metabolic regulators like these new quarterly options if you need them. Mitochondrial boosters like urolithin A. Wear your hearing aids. Learn Spanish. Keep the engine running as cleanly as possible.
And the 4th layer.
Repair. This is the new layer. This is the paradigm shift. This is ER 100. This is the promise that help is coming to actually turn back the odometer, not just slow down the car. We are watching this move from mice to humans right now.
It's a truly functional future. But I have to ask the big question, is it just for the rich? Because all this gene therapy and advanced monitoring sounds incredibly expensive.
That is the crucial question, isn't it? The macroeconomics of functional longevity. And there is a cynical view that says, yes, this is just for billionaires in Silicon Valley, but the economic data actually suggests otherwise.
Oh, so?
Because a sick, aging population is incredibly expensive. Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, frailty. These conditions drain trillions from the global economy and healthcare costs and lost productivity. A healthy, functional 75-year-old who is still working, mentoring, traveling, spending money, that person is an economic asset.
So government should want this to be free, or at least affordable.
They must want it. The longevity dividend is too big to ignore. The economic benefit of adding 5 or 10 healthy years to everyone's life would pay for the therapies 100 times over. But we have to fight for it. We have to make the case that bioinsurance should be a public utility, not a luxury good.
We've unpacked so much today. Do you have one final thought to leave us with? Something to keep us up at night, but in a good way.
I do. I want everyone listening to this to consciously rethink their mental model of aging. For all of human history, we have viewed death and aging as a wall. You run at it your whole life, you hit it at full speed, and you're done. But everything we discussed today, resetting the epigenome, clearing the mitochondria, modulating the metabolism, it proves that aging isn't a wall, it's a slope.
And we can flatten the slope.
We can flatten it, and with partial reprogramming, maybe we can even climb back up it a little. So the question I want you to ask yourself tonight is this. If we can reset the eye today and the immune system tomorrow, what part of you is actually obligated to age? Is there a law of physics that says you must decline, or have we just been accepting a correctable software bug as an unchangeable feature of the hardware?
What part of you is obligated to age? That is going to stick with me for a long time. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the future. It's a wild time to be alive and an even better time to stay alive.
Indeed, it certainly is.
Make sure you subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled, because next week, who knows what our research team will uncover. Until next time, keep looking forward.